Sophia had never imagined her life would be this exhausting. At 25, she felt like she was running in circles, juggling 2 jobs and a course load that left her brain buzzing and her body drained. Her small apartment smelled faintly of coffee and detergent, a mix that never failed to remind her of her double shifts at the cafe down the street. She loved the cafe work, or at least she loved the people she worked with. But some days the long hours and endless standing made her question why she even tried. The second job, part-time administrative work at a local office, was less enjoyable but paid the bills. Every night Sophia would collapse on her small bed, staring at the ceiling, wondering if this was the life she had imagined when she was younger, when dreams felt possible and the future was a bright horizon. That Thursday afternoon, the city streets were wet from an early rain. Sophia tugged her jacket tighter around herself, the wind cutting through her thin layers. She had almost missed the bus and ended up sprinting down the street, a folder of papers pressed tightly against her chest. She had managed to secure a spot at a small but important networking event through a scholarship program. It was her chance, her one golden opportunity to meet people who could see potential in her ideas, who could give her the first real break she had been waiting for. She knew she couldn't be late. Missing this event would mean months more of waiting, more uncertainty, more of the same struggle she was trying to escape. Sophia approached the venue, a sleek building with polished glass doors and a line of well-dressed people waiting to get in. She took a deep breath, adjusted her hair in the reflection of the glass, and tried to calm her nerves. Her hand hovered over the door, and that's when she noticed the black car parked neatly in front of the building. It wasn't unusual for events like this to have a few fancy cars outside, but this one caught her eye. The driver's door opened smoothly and a man stepped out. He was tall, dressed in a sharp suit, polished shoes, and an air of quiet confidence that made him look important, almost untouchable. Sophia's mind raced, but in the chaos of her thoughts, she assumed he was the driver or some kind of event staff. He looked too composed to be just a passerby, and in her flustered state she felt it was polite to acknowledge him. "Thank you for opening the door," she said, her voice a little higher than normal. "I really appreciate it." She offered a small smile, hoping she wasn't overstepping. The man returned her smile, a faint curve of amusement tugging at the corners of his mouth. He said nothing, only nodded slightly, allowing her misunderstanding to continue. Sophia didn't know it at the time, but the man she was addressing was Elias Harper, a billionaire entrepreneur known for keeping a low profile. His tech empire had made him one of the most influential figures in the city, yet he often avoided the spotlight. He had been attending the event to meet a few close associates, but her innocent friendliness had already caught his attention. Sophia adjusted the strap of her bag and moved toward the entrance. The rain had left her hair damp, her jacket a little soaked at the sleeves, but she didn't mind. She felt slightly embarrassed at being late and hoped no one noticed. As she entered the building, she realized the crowd was larger than she expected. People in expensive suits and elegant dresses mingled, exchanging business cards, shaking hands, and speaking with the kind of confidence she was still learning to master. She took a deep breath, reminding herself that she belonged here as much as anyone. The event was bustling, the kind of atmosphere that made her pulse quicken. She walked with purpose, trying to spot the registration table, but in her rush she stumbled slightly on the polished floor. Before she could steady herself, the same man she had addressed outside was there. He didn't offer a hand this time, just a calm presence that made her feel slightly more grounded. "Careful," he said, his voice smooth and measured, carrying a subtle warmth that immediately put her at ease. "Thanks," Sophia muttered, feeling her cheeks warm. She hurried to the registration desk, collected her badge, and tried to compose herself. The man lingered nearby, observing, but she didn't pay much attention. In her mind, he was still just part of the staff, someone there to help guide people through the event. She didn't suspect, not even for a second, that he was someone who could change her life with a single decision. As the networking session began, Sophia tried to focus on the people around her. She moved through the crowd, offering polite smiles, listening carefully to brief conversations, and occasionally introducing herself to someone who seemed approachable. Despite her nerves, she felt a small surge of excitement. This was the kind of environment she had always dreamed of being in, a place where ideas mattered, where ambition was respected, and where people were open to connections. At one point, a minor mishap occurred. A man carrying a tray of drinks accidentally tipped one over, and a glass slid dangerously close to a woman's dress. Sophia reacted instinctively, stepping forward and catching the glass just in time, helping to prevent a disaster. "Here, let me help you clean that," she said, guiding the woman to a nearby table with napkins. The woman smiled gratefully, and a few nearby guests glanced at Sophia with appreciation. Elias, who had been observing quietly from a short distance, noticed the way she handled the situation. Her calmness, her quick thinking, and her genuine concern for others were qualities he rarely saw in high-pressure environments like this. Most people would have ignored the small accident or acted with forced politeness, but Sophia had treated it as naturally as breathing. He found himself quietly impressed, intrigued by her ability to maintain composure without seeming rehearsed or trying too hard. After a few minutes, Sophia found herself near the refreshments table, trying to steady her nerves with a cup of water. She felt a tap on her shoulder and turned to see the man smiling at her again. "You handled that well," he said. "Not many people would have noticed in time." "Thank you," Sophia replied, a little unsure of how to respond. I don't know, I guess I didn't want anyone to get hurt." She laughed softly, brushing a strand of damp hair behind her ear. He nodded, and for a brief moment, the bustling crowd seemed to fade around them. There was a quietness in the way he observed her, a sense of patience and attention that was rare in people she had met. He didn't talk down to her, didn't try to impress her with titles or achievements. He simply acknowledged her action, and that alone made her feel seen, a feeling Sophia hadn't experienced in a long time. The rest of the evening passed quickly. Sophia moved through conversations, introduced herself to a few contacts, and shared her vision for a small marketing initiative she had been working on. Some listeners nodded politely, others asked follow-up questions that made her feel validated and motivated. Through it all, Elias stayed nearby, watching without intruding, occasionally offering small comments or guidance when someone seemed about to dismiss her ideas. As the event drew to a close, Sophia felt a mix of exhaustion and exhilaration. She had survived, and in some small way she had thrived. She made her way back to the entrance where the rain had slowed to a drizzle. The black car was still parked outside, and the man who had accompanied her throughout the evening stood near it. "Thank you for everything tonight," she said, again thinking of him as a part of the event staff. "I really appreciate your help." He smiled, a hint of amusement in his eyes. "You did most of the work," he said lightly. "I just watched." Sophia laughed softly, a little embarrassed but grateful. She didn't know it yet, but those simple words, that small interaction, would linger in her mind far longer than she could imagine. That night she walked home through the damp streets, thinking about the conversations she had, the people she had met, and the strange, quiet presence of the man she had mistaken for her driver. It was a small misunderstanding, a momentary mistake born of rush and nerves, but it had set in motion a chain of events that would soon change her life in ways she could never have predicted. She didn't know it yet, but someone important had noticed her, not for her appearance, not for her connections, but for her character, her authenticity, and the way she treated the world with simple respect. For Sophia, it was just another long day in the city, another evening of hard work and small victories. Yet as she climbed the stairs to her apartment and sank onto her bed, she felt a strange mix of hope and curiosity. Life, she realized, sometimes offered surprises when you least expected them, even on ordinary days when you were simply trying to survive. And this one small mistaken interaction would mark the beginning of something far bigger than she could ever imagine. The next morning, Sophia woke up earlier than usual, her mind still buzzing from the events of the previous evening. She had replayed every conversation in her head, every small interaction, wondering if she had made a good impression. Even though she tried to focus on her daily routine, the memory of the man in the black suit lingered. There was something about the calm way he had observed her, something genuine in his attention that had made her feel noticed in a way she rarely felt. At the cafe, Sophia moved through her morning shift on autopilot. The regular customers greeted her with familiar smiles, some commenting on the rain, others on the sleepy city streets. She served coffee, wiped tables, and offered small jokes to the few. Customers who looked like they needed them, yet her mind kept drifting back to the networking event. She wondered if she had done enough, If she had been bold enough when speaking with the professionals, or if she had simply faded into the background like she often did. The thought of the man, the one she still thought was a driver, made her cheeks warm. She wondered what kind of life he led, who he was outside that brief encounter. Part of her knew it was silly to dwell on someone she barely knew, but she couldn't help it. There was something magnetic about his presence, something that made her feel small but not in a bad way. Small in the sense that she realized how much bigger the world was than her apartment. Her cafe, her office. By midday, Sophia returned home, tired from the early start, but determined to continue her work on the business ideas she had been nurturing for years. She had a notebook full of sketches, strategies, and half-formed plans for a small marketing consultancy she dreamed of starting. She often felt overwhelmed by the scale of her dreams, by the resources and connections she lacked, but the event had reminded her that opportunities sometimes appeared in unexpected ways. She felt a quiet spark of determination, a whisper that maybe things could change. Then around late afternoon, an unexpected notification appeared on her phone. It was a message request from someone named Elias Harper. Sophia blinked at the screen, confused. The name sounded familiar, but she couldn't immediately place it. Curious, she accepted the request and a message appeared. "Hello, Sophia, I hope you are well. I wanted to thank you again for your help at the event yesterday. I would like to invite you for coffee sometime to continue our conversation. Are you available tomorrow?" Sophia's heart skipped a beat. Her first thought was that it must be a mistake. Maybe someone had sent the message to the wrong person, but the memory of the man's calm presence, the way he had quietly observed her at the event, came rushing back. Could it really be him? She stared at the message, unsure how to respond. After a few moments, she typed a cautious reply. "Hello, yes, I'm available tomorrow. Thank you for the invitation. Looking forward to it." The next day, Sophia arrived at a small cafe downtown chosen by Elias. She arrived early, anxious but trying to hide it behind a confident stride. The cafe was quiet, the kind of place that encouraged conversation and focus. She chose a table near the window, her bag neatly beside her, and tried to calm her racing heart. When he arrived, she finally saw him up close again. He walked with an easy confidence, his suit impeccably tailored, but there was no arrogance in his expression. His eyes held curiosity and warmth. When he approached her table, he smiled and extended a hand. "Sophia," he said, his voice calm, "thank you for meeting me." Sophia shook his hand, feeling a little awkward. "Thank you for inviting me," she replied. She still assumed he was some influential figure at the event, someone she would never normally have the chance to speak with. But she had no idea just how influential. As they sat down and ordered coffee, Elias leaned back slightly and smiled. "I wanted to speak with you again because you impressed me at the event," he said. "Most people there were concerned with appearances or networking strategies, but you were authentic. You helped someone without thinking twice. You noticed small details that others missed. That is rare." Sophia felt a blush rise to her cheeks. I didn't think I did anything special," she said, unsure how to respond. "I just acted naturally." "That is exactly why it stood out," he said, nodding. "People often try to perform kindness or professionalism, but you didn't. You simply responded, and that made all the difference." For a moment, Sophia just listened, feeling a mix of embarrassment and pride. No one had ever spoken to her like this before, not in a way that felt genuine. It was as if someone had seen her for who she really was, not for what she could offer them or how she could fit into their world. As the conversation continued, Elias encouraged her to speak about her dreams and goals. Sophia hesitated at first, unsure if she should share her ideas with someone she barely knew. But something in his attentive gaze and the way he listened without interruption or judgment gave her courage. She spoke about her marketing concepts, the consultancy she had been planning, and the challenges she faced trying to get noticed in a competitive industry. She spoke freely, her voice growing steadier with each sentence, her excitement shining through. Elias listened carefully, occasionally nodding, asking questions that showed he understood and cared. "These are strong ideas," he said. "You have creativity, insight, and determination. But sometimes talent alone isn't enough. Connections, guidance, and resources are also necessary to turn ideas into reality." Sophia nodded, feeling a mixture of relief and apprehension. She had been working hard, but she had always lacked the kind of mentorship that could guide her through the complicated world of business and investment. Hearing him acknowledge her potential and offer guidance was both thrilling and intimidating. Over the next hour, the conversation shifted from her ideas to practical advice. Elias shared insights about presenting proposals, approaching investors, and refining her messaging. He didn't lecture or dominate the conversation. Instead, he guided her gently, prompting her to think critically and see opportunities she might have overlooked. Sophia felt as if she had been given a small window into a world that had always seemed out of reach. Before they left the cafe, Elias leaned forward slightly. "Sophia, I want to be clear about something," he said. "I'm not offering charity. I'm offering mentorship. I see potential in you, and I want to help you grow, but the work and the responsibility will be yours. Are you ready for that?" Sophia paused, thinking about the long hours, the struggles, and the moments of doubt she had faced over the years. Could she take on something bigger? Could she leave the comfort of routine and step into uncertainty for a chance at her dreams? Her mind raced, but her heart told her yes. "Yes," she said, her voice steady despite the excitement she felt inside. "I'm ready." Elias smiled, a genuine warmth in his expression. "Good. Then let's start by setting some clear goals. We'll take it step by step. This is about building something sustainable, something meaningful. You have the creativity and drive, and I can help provide perspective and guidance. Together we can see where it goes." Sophia left the cafe that afternoon feeling a mixture of exhilaration and disbelief. The world she had glimpsed through that simple invitation was one she had only dreamed about, and yet it was now tangible within reach. She walked through the streets, her steps lighter, her mind buzzing with possibilities. She knew it wouldn't be easy. There would be obstacles, setbacks, and moments of doubt, but for the first time in a long while she felt that the future was hers to shape. Over the next few weeks, Sophia and Elias met regularly. Their meetings were a mix of brainstorming sessions, practical advice, and strategy discussions. He introduced her to small groups of professionals, carefully selecting people who could provide meaningful insights and opportunities. Sophia soaked in every conversation, every suggestion, and every critique. She worked tirelessly, refining her business plan, adjusting her strategies, and testing her ideas in small, low-risk ways. One day, while working on a presentation for potential investors, she paused to reflect on how far she had come. Just a month ago, she had been exhausted, barely scraping by, unsure if her dreams were achievable. Now she had a clear path, guidance from someone who believed in her, and a growing confidence in her abilities. The thought that this had all begun with a simple misunderstanding, the mistaken assumption that Elias was a driver, made her smile. It felt almost surreal, the way life sometimes shifted in a single moment. Even as her schedule became busier, Sophia remained grounded. She remembered her beginnings, the long nights at the cafe, the small victories and failures that had shaped her resilience. She treated everyone she met with the same respect and warmth, knowing that success was not only about connections or money, but about integrity and authenticity. The city no longer felt overwhelming. It felt like a place full of possibilities, a stage where she could step forward with confidence, and while she still faced uncertainty, she knew she wasn't alone. Elias's mentorship had opened doors, yes, but it had also taught her to trust herself, to see value in her ideas, and to act with courage even when the path ahead was unclear. Sophia often thought back to that rainy evening at the event, to the small misunderstanding that had brought her to this point. If she had recognized him as a billionaire from the start, she might have acted differently, nervously, or with too much formality. But because she had treated him naturally, without expectation or fear, she had made a genuine connection that changed everything. It was a lesson she carried with her, that authenticity, kindness, and courage often mattered more than credentials or appearances. As the weeks turned into months, Sophia's life began to shift in ways she had never imagined. Each meeting with Elias, each new connection, each small success built upon the last. She felt herself growing not just as a professional, but as a person, more confident, more resilient, and more aware of the power of simple human interactions. And through it all, she never forgot the moment that had started it. A brief, unguarded encounter, a mistaken assumption, and the quiet smile of a man who had seen her for who she truly was. Sophia's life had begun to feel like a whirlwind, Days passed in a blur of meetings, notes, and brainstorming sessions, yet she never felt so alive. Each morning she woke with a purpose, her energy fueled by the thought of building something meaningful, something of her own. She often thought about the man who had changed the course of her life so unexpectedly. Elias Harper, or so she thought she knew him. Over the past few weeks, their conversations had grown deeper, moving from casual advice into strategy sessions, mentorship, and even life lessons. He had a way of asking questions that made her think beyond the obvious, helping her to see potential where she had once only seen obstacles. One Friday afternoon, Sophia arrived at their usual meeting spot, a quiet cafe where the baristas knew their names and the tables offered a sense of calm away from the bustling streets outside. She walked in, her notebook clutched tightly against her chest, expecting to find Elias already there, reviewing his notes or sipping coffee quietly. But when she approached the table, she noticed he had a visitor. A young woman, elegantly dressed and carrying herself with quiet authority, stood near him, looking as if she had just stepped out of a high-profile meeting. Elias greeted Sophia with a warm smile. "Good to see you, Sophia. I want you to meet someone important, my assistant Claire. She helps me with scheduling, communications, and keeping my world in order." Sophia extended her hand politely and Claire smiled, her eyes kind but professional. "It's nice to meet you, Sophia. Elias has spoken highly of your ideas and work ethic." Sophia felt a flush of pride but also a small pang of nerves. She had been working closely with Elias, sharing her plans and ideas, yet she had no idea that behind the calm exterior, his world was so much larger than she realized. She had assumed he was simply a successful professional, a generous mentor who believed in potential. The truth was far more astonishing. As they sat down, Elias leaned back slightly and took a sip of his coffee.
"Sophia, there's something I should clarify," he said, his tone calm but deliberate.
"When we first met, you mistook me for the event's driver. I didn't correct you at the time because I wanted to see how you would interact naturally, and honestly, it spoke volumes about your character." Sophia blinked, caught off guard. "Wait, you're not a driver?" she asked, her voice a mixture of surprise and amusement. Elias chuckled softly. "No, Sophia, I run a company, a larger one than you might have guessed. I don't usually reveal this immediately because it changes how people act around me, but I wanted to see the real you, not the version that tries to impress someone with a title or wealth." For a moment, Sophia's mind went blank. She had always known he was influential, but not this much. The realization hit her like a wave. The man who had guided her through conversations, who had offered advice and mentorship, who had shown genuine interest in her ideas, was a billionaire. A man whose business decisions affected thousands, whose presence in a room commanded attention, and yet here he was, speaking to her as if she were the only person in the world that mattered. I don't know what to say," Sophia finally managed, her voice quiet but sincere. "I never expected. I thought you were just someone important at the event, not this." Elias smiled, his eyes warm. "You don't have to say anything. I wanted you to understand one thing. The way you act, the way you treat people, matters more than titles, wealth, or status. That is why I wanted to meet you again. I wanted to see what you could do when you are yourself, without pretense." Sophia felt a mix of embarrassment, awe, and gratitude. She had always believed that success required hard work, determination, and a little bit of luck. But she hadn't realized how much authenticity and character mattered in the real world, especially in places where people often acted out of self-interest. She had stumbled into a moment that had revealed her true self, and it had changed everything. Over the next hour, Elias shared more about his life and work than he had previously. He spoke of his company, its growth, and the challenges he faced in leading a large organization. He didn't boast or brag. His tone was matter-of-fact, grounded, and surprisingly human. He spoke about failures he had endured, mistakes that had cost him millions, and lessons that had shaped him as a leader. Sophia listened, absorbing every word, her admiration growing not just for his accomplishments but for his humility and honesty. "You have potential, Sophia," he said finally, leaning forward slightly. "You have ideas, drive, and the ability to think critically. But potential alone isn't enough. You need guidance, opportunity, and the right environment to grow. That's why I am here, to help you navigate that path if you are willing to take it." Sophia nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. I am, she said firmly. I want to learn, to grow, to take risks and do whatever it takes. I've been waiting for a chance like this, even if I didn't know it would come in this way. Elias smiled, a mixture of approval and encouragement in his expression. Good. Because the next steps will challenge you, push you beyond your comfort zone, and demand focus and resilience. But I believe you are capable. The days that followed were filled with intense work. Sophia found herself learning at a pace she had never experienced before. She studied business strategies, marketing techniques, and investment principles. Elias introduced her to mentors, experts, and industry leaders, each interaction broadening her understanding and sharpening her skills. She began to see the world differently, recognizing patterns and opportunities that had previously gone unnoticed. One afternoon, while reviewing a presentation she had prepared for potential investors, Sophia paused to reflect. The journey from her small apartment, juggling cafe shifts and part-time office work, to this point felt almost unreal. She had grown more confident, more aware of her abilities, and more determined to succeed. And yet the memory of that first encounter, the mistaken assumption, the casual politeness, the genuine smile, remained vivid in her mind. It was a reminder that life sometimes presented opportunities in the most unexpected ways. Sophia also noticed subtle changes within herself. She had always been diligent, but now she approached tasks with strategic thinking, balancing creativity with practical execution. She was no longer intimidated by high-profile meetings or influential figures. She understood that preparation, authenticity, and clarity of vision were more powerful than nerves or fear. The guidance from Elias had not only provided knowledge, but also instilled confidence and resilience, essential traits for anyone stepping into uncharted territory. As weeks turned into months, the bond between Sophia and Elias grew stronger. Their relationship was professional but carried an undercurrent of trust and mutual respect. He challenged her, pushed her to question assumptions, and encouraged her to embrace risk. In turn, she brought fresh ideas, energy, and an unfiltered perspective that he valued immensely. Together, they navigated the complexities of launching projects, pitching ideas, and building networks. One day, after a particularly long strategy session, Elias leaned back in his chair and smiled. "Do you realize how far you've come in such a short time?" he asked. Sophia laughed softly, a mixture of pride and humility in her expression. "It feels surreal sometimes," she admitted. "I still can't believe that it all started with a simple misunderstanding at that event." "That's the thing about life," Elias said thoughtfully. "Moments, even small ones, can change everything. A decision, a chance encounter, an honest interaction. They can open doors you never imagined." Sophia nodded, feeling the truth of his words resonate deeply. She thought about her past struggles, the long nights at the cafe, the exhaustion, the doubts, and the tiny sparks of hope she had clung to. Those moments had shaped her resilience, her determination, and her ability to recognize opportunity when it appeared. And now that resilience was paying off in ways she had never dared to dream. The revelation of Elias's true identity had not intimidated her. It had motivated her. She realized that the world of influence and wealth was not a realm to fear, but one to navigate with integrity, intelligence, and authenticity. And she knew that her own actions, her willingness to act naturally and kindly, had opened the first door. Sophia's days became a careful balance of learning, planning, and execution. She stayed grounded in her values, remembering the humility that had carried her through difficult times. She treated every interaction with respect, every opportunity with seriousness, and every challenge with determination. And all the while she knew that one simple decision, the casual politeness she had shown a stranger on a rainy evening, had set this entire journey into motion. By the end of the month, Sophia had begun drafting a formal proposal for her marketing consultancy. She refined her ideas, incorporated feedback from mentors, and structured her plan with precision. Elias reviewed each draft, providing constructive criticism and encouragement. The process was rigorous, demanding, and sometimes exhausting, but Sophia felt more alive than ever. She understood that growth required effort, and she was willing to invest herself fully. One evening, as she left Elias's office after a long day of work, Sophia paused outside the building. The city lights reflected on the wet streets, and a gentle breeze carried the scent of rain and possibility. She felt a deep sense of gratitude, not just for the mentorship and opportunities, but for the chance encounter that had started it all. That moment of misunderstanding, when she had assumed Elias was a driver, had revealed her character and changed the trajectory of her life. Sophia smiled to herself, realizing that life's unpredictability was both challenging and beautiful. She had stepped into a world she had never imagined, guided by integrity, courage, and the kindness of a man who saw potential where others might not. And she knew that this was only the beginning. Sophia's days had started to feel fuller, yet somehow lighter at the same time. The whirlwind of mentorship, meetings, and planning for her consultancy left her exhausted in the evenings. But it also brought a sense of purpose she had never experienced before. For the first time in years, she felt like she was moving forward, not just surviving, but building something real. Every step she took was deliberate, every decision carefully considered, and yet she carried a spark of excitement that reminded her why she had started this journey. Despite her growing confidence, Sophia faced doubts that crept in quietly. Each morning she would wake with a mixture of anticipation and fear. Could she really make this work? Would the investors see the value she saw in her ideas? Could she truly handle the pressure of building something from the ground up, while maintaining her integrity and vision? These thoughts occasionally made her pause, but she reminded herself that she had already taken the first and hardest step. She had trusted in her instincts and seized an opportunity that many would have ignored. One afternoon, Elias invited Sophia to his office for a longer session. The room was spacious, filled with bookshelves, awards, and a large desk cluttered with papers and devices. The setting was impressive, but Sophia tried not to be intimidated. She had met with him enough times now to understand that what mattered wasn't the grandeur of the space, but the conversations that took place within it. "Sophia," Elias began, leaning back in his chair, "we need to discuss your next move. You've built a solid foundation, and your plan has evolved nicely. But now comes the part that will test your resolve, executing the plan in the real world." Sophia nodded, feeling a mix of excitement and nerves. "I know," she said. "I'm ready. I've been thinking about how to approach potential clients and investors. I've refined my proposals and created a strategy for each step." Elias smiled, clearly pleased. "Good. Strategy is important, but execution will require more than just a plan. It requires adaptability, persistence, and the ability to handle setbacks without losing focus. Are you prepared for that?" Sophia paused, thinking about the long nights she had spent studying, planning, and refining every detail. She had faced exhaustion before, but this felt different. It wasn't just about hard work. It was about taking risks, stepping into a world where outcomes were uncertain and stakes were high. "I'm prepared," she said firmly, her voice steady despite the flutter of nerves in her chest. "I want to take this step even if it's challenging. I've worked too hard to turn back now." Elias leaned forward, his eyes serious. "Good, because the next few weeks will determine a lot. You'll be meeting investors, pitching your ideas and testing your concepts in ways that require confidence and clarity. It won't be easy, but I believe you have what it takes." The following days were intense. Sophia's schedule became packed with preparation sessions, mock pitches, and one-on-one discussions with Elias. He taught her how to anticipate questions from investors, how to present her ideas succinctly, and how to communicate her passion without sounding overconfident. Sophia absorbed every lesson, practicing tirelessly, refining every detail, and learning to present herself in a way that balanced professionalism with authenticity. One evening, after a long session, Sophia sat in her apartment reflecting on her journey so far. She had moved from the exhaustion of juggling 2 jobs to the challenge of launching a business under the mentorship of a billionaire. It was overwhelming at times, but it was also exhilarating. She realized that every struggle she had faced in her past had prepared her for this moment. The long hours at the cafe had taught her patience and resilience. Her administrative job had taught her organization and attention to detail, and her persistent curiosity had given her the ability to learn quickly and adapt. The night before her first major investor meeting, Sophia barely slept. Her mind raced with ideas, potential questions, and possible outcomes. She reviewed her presentation repeatedly, made last-minute adjustments, and rehearsed her pitch aloud in front of the mirror. She reminded herself that this was more than just a chance to secure funding. It was a chance to prove to herself that she could step into a world she had only dreamed about and succeed on her own terms. The next morning, Sophia arrived at the investor's office, her nerves tingling but her resolve firm. Elias had accompanied her for support, but he let her take the lead, observing quietly as she entered the conference room. The investors were experienced, sharp, and polite, yet there was a subtle intensity in their gaze that immediately reminded her of the stakes. Sophia began her presentation, speaking clearly and confidently. She explained her business model, outlined her strategies, and highlighted the unique aspects of her consultancy. She could see the investors listening intently, some nodding in approval, others jotting notes. She anticipated their questions and addressed potential concerns proactively, drawing from the practice sessions she had shared with Elias. As the discussion progressed, Sophia felt a sense of flow she hadn't experienced before. The nerves didn't vanish entirely, but they transformed into focus and energy. She realized that she wasn't just selling a business plan, she was sharing her vision, her ideas, and her commitment. By the end of the meeting, the investors were engaged, asking thoughtful questions and clearly considering her proposal seriously. After the investors left, Sophia exhaled deeply, feeling both relief and exhilaration. Elias approached her, smiling. "Well done," he said simply. "You handled yourself with confidence and clarity." That was impressive. Sophia felt a swell of pride, but also a quiet realization. This was only the beginning. The journey ahead would be filled with challenges, negotiations, and unexpected obstacles. But for the first time, she felt equipped to face them. She had learned how to adapt, how to communicate, and how to maintain her authenticity in high-pressure situations. Over the following weeks, Sophia's consultancy began to take shape. She secured initial funding, began reaching out to clients, and slowly built a network of professionals who believed in her vision. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced her confidence and motivated her to keep pushing forward. She learned that setbacks were inevitable, but each one provided an opportunity to learn, refine, and improve. One afternoon, while reviewing a client proposal, Sophia received a call from Elias. "I have an opportunity for you," he said. "A larger client has expressed interest in your consultancy, but they want to see a demonstration of your capabilities first. This is your chance to show what you've built and gain credibility in the industry." Sophia felt a surge of excitement mixed with anxiety. This was exactly the kind of challenge she had been preparing for, yet the stakes were high. She spent the next few days meticulously preparing, refining her pitch, and anticipating every possible question. She practiced with Elias, simulated client scenarios, and sought feedback on every detail. When the day arrived, Sophia presented her proposal to the client, demonstrating not just her knowledge but her passion and dedication. She spoke with clarity, confidence, and authenticity, answering questions thoughtfully and showcasing her ability to deliver results. By the end of the meeting, the client was impressed and Sophia secured the contract. It was a turning point, proof that her ideas were viable and that she could succeed in a competitive environment. The victory was sweet, but Sophia remained grounded. She knew that success required continuous effort, learning, and adaptation. She reflected on her journey, remembering the first rainy evening at the networking event, the simple misunderstanding and the quiet smile of Elias Harper that had set everything in motion. That moment had revealed her character, her resilience, and her potential. Without it, she might never have stepped into the world that was now hers to navigate. Sophia also realized that mentorship was more than guidance. It was a partnership. Elias had provided support, knowledge, and opportunity, but it was her determination, authenticity, and willingness to take risks that had allowed her to grow. She had learned to trust herself, to make decisions with confidence, and to embrace challenges as opportunities rather than obstacles. By the end of the month, Sophia had built a small but promising consultancy, gained her first clients, and established a reputation for reliability, creativity, and integrity. She had transformed from a young woman juggling multiple jobs into a professional, capable of navigating complex business environments. And through it all, she had remained true to herself, remembering the lessons of humility, authenticity, and resilience that had guided her from the very beginning. As she sat in her small office one evening, reviewing the progress she had made, Sophia felt a deep sense of gratitude. Life had offered her an extraordinary opportunity, but it had been her choices, effort, and integrity that had allowed her to seize it. thought about the countless moments that had led her here, the struggles, the mistakes, the perseverance, and realized that each one had been necessary. Each step, no matter how small, had prepared her for this reality. And through it all, she never forgot the simple moment that had started it all, a mistaken assumption, a polite smile, and a brief interaction with a man she had thought was a driver. That small moment had revealed her character, opened doors, and ultimately changed the course of her life. Sophia smiled to herself, understanding that the journey was far from over. There would be challenges, risks, and uncertainties ahead, but she now possessed the tools, confidence, and resilience to face them. She had taken a leap into a world she had only dreamed about, and she had landed on her feet, and she knew, without a doubt, that this was only the beginning of a remarkable story, one shaped by courage, authenticity, and the willingness to embrace unexpected opportunities. Sophia's life had transformed in ways she could hardly have imagined. The small consultancy she had once dreamed of was now a growing business with multiple clients and projects in motion. Each success, no matter how small, reinforced her confidence and fueled her determination to continue pushing forward. She had learned to trust her instincts, navigate challenges with resilience, and maintain the authenticity that had first caught Elias's attention. The morning sun streamed through her office window, casting a warm glow across the room. Sophia sat at her desk, reviewing a new proposal for a potential client, her mind focused but calm. The past few months had been a whirlwind. Meetings, pitches, strategy sessions, and long hours refining her ideas, but for the first time she felt truly in control of her own future. She had taken the lessons Elias had taught her and applied them diligently, learning not just the mechanics of business, but also the importance of leadership, integrity, and vision. Her phone buzzed with a message from Elias. "Lunch today. I have someone I'd like you to meet. Trust me, this is important." Sophia smiled, sensing the tone of excitement behind his words. She packed her notes and stepped out into the bustling streets, her mind racing with curiosity. She had come to rely on Elias's guidance, but he also knew when to let her take the lead. And she trusted him implicitly. At the cafe where they often met, Elias was already seated with a confident young entrepreneur. The man extended his hand warmly to Sophia, introducing himself as someone who had been observing her work through Elias's recommendations. "I've heard great things about you, Sophia," he said. "Your reputation precedes you, and I wanted to see for myself the work that has captured so much attention." Sophia shook his hand, a mixture of humility and pride swelling within her. She had worked hard for this moment, learning to navigate the world of business with skill, creativity, and perseverance. It was satisfying to see that her efforts were recognized, and she felt a quiet sense of validation for all the late nights, doubts, and challenges she had faced along the way. Elias smiled knowingly, his eyes reflecting the pride he felt in her growth. "Sophia, this is just the beginning," he said. "Your journey has been remarkable, but there are bigger opportunities ahead. You've proven that you have the talent, resilience, and character to succeed in the real world. Now it's time to step even further into it." The conversation over lunch revolved around future collaborations, potential partnerships, and innovative projects that could expand her consultancy. Sophia felt energized by the possibilities, her mind buzzing with ideas and strategies. For the first time, she truly understood the scale of what she could achieve. Her past struggles, the long hours at the cafe, the administrative job, the uncertainty of her early career, now felt like the foundation that had prepared her for this moment. Returning to her office, Sophia sat at her desk and reflected on the journey that had brought her here. She thought about the rainy evening when she had first met Elias, the moment she had mistaken him for the driver. That simple, innocent interaction had set off a chain of events that changed the trajectory of her life entirely. It had been her authenticity, her willingness to act naturally and kindly, that had opened the door to opportunities she had never imagined. Her thoughts wandered to the countless lessons she had learned along the way. She had learned to balance ambition with humility, to approach challenges with confidence but not arrogance, and to maintain her integrity even in high-pressure situations. She had discovered that success was not just about skills or intelligence, but also about character, resilience, and the ability to build genuine relationships. Sophia's consultancy began to attract more attention. Clients appreciated her authenticity, dedication, and the creative solutions she offered. Her ability to listen, understand needs, and provide practical strategies made her stand out in a competitive industry. Word of her work spread, and soon she was approached for projects that were larger, more complex, and more rewarding than anything she had initially imagined. Elias continued to mentor her, offering guidance when needed but allowing her the space to make her own decisions. Their partnership had evolved into a professional relationship built on trust and mutual respect. He encouraged her to take risks, to explore opportunities outside her comfort zone, and to embrace challenges as chances for growth. Sophia valued his insights, but she had also learned to trust her own judgment and instincts, knowing that she had earned her place in this world. One afternoon, Sophia received an invitation to speak at a prestigious industry event. She felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. Public speaking had never been her strength, yet she knew this was an opportunity to share her journey, her ideas, and her vision with a larger audience. With Elias's guidance, she prepared diligently, crafting a message that was both professional and heartfelt. She practiced her delivery, anticipating questions and refining her presentation until she felt confident and ready. The day of the event arrived, and Sophia stood backstage taking deep breaths to steady her nerves. When she stepped onto the stage, the audience greeted her with polite applause. She began speaking, sharing her journey from a young woman juggling 2 jobs to the founder of a growing consultancy. She spoke about the challenges she faced, the lessons she learned, and the importance of authenticity, resilience, and courage. As she spoke, Sophia noticed nods of agreement and engagement from the audience. People were listening, genuinely interested in her story and insights. She felt a surge of pride realizing that her experiences, struggles, and choices had value, not just to her but to others who might be navigating similar paths. By the end of her talk, she received a standing ovation, and several audience members approached her afterward, expressing interest in collaboration and seeking advice. Walking off the stage, Sophia felt a profound sense of accomplishment. She had come a long way, and yet she knew that her journey was ongoing. Each milestone, each success, was a step toward building a future defined not just by achievement, but by purpose, integrity, and impact. Over the next few months, Sophia's consultancy flourished. She expanded her team, taking on talented individuals who shared her values and vision. She nurtured a culture of creativity, collaboration, and ethical business practices. Her clients praised not only the quality of her work, but also the genuine care she demonstrated in every project. Sophia had learned that leadership was not about titles or authority, but about inspiring others, fostering trust, and creating an environment where people could thrive. One evening, Sophia sat in her office reflecting on the journey she had traveled. The city outside was alive with lights and movement, a reminder of the world she had once navigated with uncertainty and trepidation. She thought about the countless moments that had shaped her path, the struggles, the doubts, the perseverance, and realized that each step had been essential. Without the challenges, she would not have developed the resilience, resourcefulness, and determination that had brought her to this point. Her thoughts returned to Elias, the man who had seen her potential when no one else did. He had offered guidance, opportunity, and mentorship, but it was her own courage, authenticity, and dedication that had allowed her to seize those opportunities. She felt immense gratitude for his presence in her life, not just as a mentor, but as someone who had taught her to believe in herself and embrace the unknown. Sophia also reflected on the power of small, seemingly insignificant moments. The rainy evening, the polite smile, the mistaken assumption, all had led to a profound transformation. She realized that life often presented opportunities in the most unexpected ways, and that courage, authenticity, and kindness could open doors that might otherwise remain closed. As she looked ahead, Sophia felt a sense of clarity and purpose. She understood that success was not merely measured by financial gain or recognition, but by the ability to create meaningful work, foster genuine relationships, and contribute positively to the world around her. She had built a foundation that allowed her to continue growing, learning, and making an impact. The final weeks of the year brought new challenges and exciting developments. Sophia took on projects that pushed her skills and creativity, negotiated contracts that required strategic thinking, and continued building a network of collaborators and clients who,